environment for a second.
Yeah, literally right now, just take a look.
Exactly. Wherever you happen to be. Are you sitting in a room, maybe staring at a blank wall?
Or maybe you're on a crowded commute, just, staring at the back of someone's head on a bus or a train.
Right, or maybe you're at a messy desk, surrounded by half-empty coffee cups and sticky notes.
Oh, I know that desk well.
We all do. But whatever it is, whatever you're looking at right now, I want to pose a question to you. Is that just a room? Is it just a commute or just a messy desk? Or, and hear me out here, is it a gateway to complete enlightenment?
That is, it's a deeply provocative question, and it's one that really challenges our basic assumptions about the world.
Totally.
Because we are so culturally conditioned to think of enlightenment as this event that happens far away from our daily lives.
Right, like on a mountaintop.
Exactly. We imagine it occurring on some misty mountaintop, or maybe after years of silent meditation in a remote monastery. We certainly don't imagine it happening while sitting in traffic or, looking at a cold cup of coffee.
Right. But today, we are going to explore a philosophical framework that argues the exact opposite of that. We have a really fascinating stack of sources in front of us today, all centering around R.H. BLYTH's monumental analysis of haiku poetry.
It's an incredible body of work. Really dense, but incredible.
It is. Specifically, we are looking at the intricate philosophy woven into the haiku of summer and autumn. And the mission of this deep dive is absolutely not to just casually read some centuries-old Japanese nature poetry.
No, definitely not. If you think we're just going to sit here and talk about pretty cherry blossoms and gentle breezes, you need to completely reset your expectations.
Yeah, seriously. Okay, let's unpack this. We are here to decode a radical, arguably shocking way of living and seeing the physical world.
We're going to get into the psychological whiplash between the seasons of summer and autumn.
Oh, the psychological shift is wild. Plus, we're going to cover the intense, blood-soaked symbolism of a very specific bird.
And of course, the cold, terrifying reality of the autumn moon.
Yeah. So the tone we need to establish from the very beginning here is one of extreme, almost uncomfortable attentiveness.
That's a good way to put it, because what becomes abundantly clear when you truly study these specific poems is that the entire art form is, well, it's deceptive.
How so?
It deliberately masks these profound, universe-altering truths under a veneer of apparent simplicity. It absolutely does not do the cognitive work for you.
Right, it's not passive entertainment.
Exactly. It requires your active, sometimes really strenuous cooperation to unlock what is actually being said beneath the surface.
And before we even begin to look at the specific seasons, we have to talk about a fundamental shift in perception,
Yes,
right?
absolutely critical.
To even begin to understand this material, we have to move from our ordinary, cluttered, everyday mind to what the sources call the haiku mind.
The haiku mind.
The material hits you right away with this concept of Buddha nature. There's this idea presented that goes, let me quote it here, "One thought of folly makes a man an ordinary man, the next enlightened thought, and he is a Buddha."
It's a massive claim.
It really is. According to this, we are experiencing enlightenment many times a day, but we are completely failing to realize it. But I need to stop right there because Buddha nature and enlightenment are words that get thrown around so much today, they've almost lost their meaning.
They've become buzzwords, yeah.
Exactly. So what exactly is a thought of folly versus an enlightened thought in the context of, like, a random Tuesday afternoon?
It's a crucial distinction to make. A thought of folly isn't necessarily something malicious or evil. It's simply any thought that is clouded by your ego.
Okay.
Your desires, your anxieties, your judgments. Well, let's use your example of the commute from earlier.
Oh boy, okay.
You're sitting in traffic. A thought of folly is, I'm going to be late. That guy in the red car is an idiot. I hate this highway. Why does this always happen to me?
Right.
You are completely trapped in your own narrative. Your reality is entirely self-referential in that moment.
Okay, so that's basically my default state of being, like, all the time.
I mean, for most of us, yes,
Yes.
it's exhausting. But now, an enlightened thought in that exact same moment wouldn't be you suddenly glowing with a golden aura and floating above your steering wheel.
That would be cool, though.
It would be, but that's not what this is. An enlightened thought would be the moment your brain stops spinning that anxious narrative, and you simply notice the way the afternoon light is refracting through a crack in your windshield.
Wow.
Or maybe you notice the exact shade of gray of the asphalt. In that split second, your ego just vanishes. You are no longer the center of the universe complaining about traffic. You are simply a consciousness observing the world exactly as it is.
Just existing.
Yes. In that fraction of a second, you are a Buddha.
But then, the guy in the red car honks his horn, and I'm instantly back to being an ordinary, annoyed human.
Yeah. Precisely. That's the cycle. The argument in Blythe's analysis is that the entire physical world around us, the steering wheel, the cracked glass, the bacteria on the seat, the clouds above it, is constantly presenting itself to us.
Like it's asking to be seen.
Yes, it's asking for our pure apprehension. It's essentially working for our enlightenment. But our thoughts are so clouded by that constant stream of folly that we just miss it.
We just drive right past it.
Literally and metaphorically. Haiku is an attempt to capture those fleeting, split-second moments of pure observation. It tries to isolate the profound significance of a moment from what they call the brute fact, or the mundane circumstance. There is a classic Zen metaphor used to describe this that Blythe brings up. Haiku is merely a single finger pointing to the moon.
Let's dig into that metaphor a bit, because it sounds really poetic, but what does it actually mean in practice?
Well, it means the poem itself is not the ultimate truth. The words on the page are just the finger. The moon is the actual reality, the profound truth of the universe.
Okay, I follow that.
Now, if you look at a lot of classical Western poetry, for example, it is heavily ornamented. It's full of grand metaphors, complex rhyme schemes, and just these incredibly flowery adjectives.
Right, very dense.
In this metaphor, that is like having a finger that is covered in beautiful, glittering, expensive jewels.
And if you have a beautifully bejeweled finger pointing at the sky.
You end up staring at the rings. You say, oh, what a beautiful finger. Look at the craftsmanship of those jewels. And you completely forget to look at the moon it's pointing at.
Oh, that makes so much sense. You admire the poetry, but you miss the reality.
Exactly. Haiku deliberately strips away all the jewels. It uses plain, sometimes almost shockingly blunt language. The finger is unadorned, maybe even a little ugly, so that you have absolutely no choice but to follow its direction and look at the moon.
It forces your gaze away from the words.
Yes. And furthermore, the philosophy behind this states that this kind of poetry is the ultimate application of the concept, love one another. But, and this is key, it expands that concept far beyond just human beings. It means applying love one another to bacteria, to reptiles, to a piece of dirt on the ground.
Okay, I have to push back on this a little bit.
Right.
Because applying love one another to a piece of dirt sounds great if you're on, like, a meditation retreat. But if we're talking about poetry that strips away all the adjectives, all the grand metaphors, and just gives you plain, raw facts, isn't a haiku just a grocery list?
A grocery list. That's an interesting way to look at it.
Well, yeah. Where is the art in just stating what is physically there? I'm trying to picture this. Imagine a modern, ultra-minimalist apartment. You walk in, and there's literally nothing but white walls and a single plain wooden chair in the middle of the room.
Okay, I see where you're going.
Is that room empty and boring? Or is the total lack of clutter forcing your brain to stop being distracted? Like forcing you to walk up to that single chair and appreciate the exact grain of the wood, the subtle curve of the leg, the actual reality of the object? Is that what this haiku mind is trying to force us to do?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, that minimalist apartment analogy is actually perfect for understanding the mechanics of this philosophy.
Really?
Yes. Because why do we clutter our apartments and our minds in the first place? We do it because we are secretly terrified of the void.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
We fill our rooms with decorations and our minds with constant chatter because facing the unadorned reality of a single object or a single moment in time, it requires an intense vulnerability. What you are describing with that single wooden chair is a concept known in Zen philosophy as thusness.
Thusness.
Thusness, or it's sometimes translated as just so-ness.
Just so-ness. I like that.
It is the recognition of truth in its completely unadorned, unmanipulated form. It is looking at the chair and not thinking, oh, I should paint that chair, or that chair reminds me of my grandmother, or that chair is incredibly ugly.
It's just chair.
It is simply acknowledging chair. And to illustrate just how difficult and shocking this concept of thusness is for the average highly educated mind, BLYTH shares this brilliant anecdote involving the English poet William Blake.
Right. This totally stood out to me in the reading. William Blake, the guy who wrote about tigers burning bright and these vast mythological epics.
Exactly. Blake's mind was constantly filled with angels, demons, and grand religious visions. But there's a diary entry from a man named Crab Robinson. He records a conversation where Blake went into what was described as a hysterical rapture over a poem by his contemporary, William Wordsworth.
Hysterical rapture. That's a strong reaction.
Very strong. And the fascinating part is, it wasn't one of Wordsworth's grand philosophical poems. It was a simple, completely unornamented stanza about looking at a single tree and a single field. Nothing magical happened in the poem. There were no angels.
There's just a tree in a field.
Just a tree and a field.
And Blake just lost his mind over that. Why?
Because Blake, as a visionary, suddenly realized the terrifying power of thusness. He was so used to looking at the world and seeing it cloaked in his own prophetic imagination.
He was always adding layers to it.
Yes. So to be confronted with the sheer, unadorned reality of a tree just being a tree, and to realize that the infinite universe is contained entirely within that plain, boring fact, was intellectually overwhelming for him. It essentially broke his brain for a moment.
It is wild.
The analysis we are looking at argues that average human nature is fundamentally cowardly in this regard. We constantly fail to recognize truth in poetry when we are confronted with it in a naked, unornamented form. We constantly demand that our poetry be dressed up in costumes.
We want the bejeweled finger.
We desperately want the bejeweled finger because looking directly at the moon is too intense. When a true haiku poet sees, say, an old, rotting hermitage that has collapsed among some blooming weeds, they don't look at it and think it's a tragedy. They don't write a poem about how it's an inappropriate end for a holy place or how it's an appropriate symbol of nature reclaiming man's work. They completely bypass judgment.
They don't add a moral lesson to it.
None at all. The hermitage has fallen. The weeds are blooming. It simply is. It lies there. That is thusness. It is the poetic flow of life becoming conscious of itself, without our human judgments, our morality, or our sentimentalities getting in the way.
Okay, I think I understand the theory of thusness, but practically speaking, how did these poets actually capture that with words? Because words are inherently clunky, right? As soon as I say the word tree, I'm already using a symbol. I'm using a category. I'm already one step removed from the actual physical object with bark and leaves.
That's the eternal problem of language, yes.
So the argument here is that they achieve this by doing something really radical to human perception. They basically collapse the boundaries between the five senses.
They absolutely do, because the intellect uses words to categorize and separate things. The intellect says, okay, this is a sound, that is a sight, this is a feeling.
It puts everything in little boxes.
Exactly. But the body experiences the world as a singular, unified phenomenon. The haiku masters developed a very specific material way of looking at the world that forcefully reunites our separated senses. It bypasses the categorizing intellect entirely.
Give me an example of how that actually works in a poem.
Let's look at a very famous piece by the poet Taishitsu. He is looking at the moon on a summer night, and he writes, "The midnight moon, a ball of coolness."
A ball of coolness, not a ball of light.
Right. Think deeply about what is happening there, neurologically and poetically. Coolness is strictly a tactile sensation.
Yeah, you feel it on your skin.
You feel it with your nerve endings. The moon is strictly a visual object. You see it with your retinas millions of miles away. You cannot physically touch the moon to see if it is cold.
Obviously not.
But Taishitsu is standing outside. He feels the chill of the night air on his skin. He looks up, and his mind just refuses to separate the two experiences. He physically sees the coolness embodied in the glowing orb. The tactile sensation of coolness is perceived by the eye. The visual object of the moon is felt as a tactile sensation. It's a total reunion of sensory impressions.
It's synesthesia.
Yeah.
And they're doing this on purpose. But it's not just mixing up sight and touch. It gets much more intense when they start dealing with sound. The analysis talks heavily about the role of onomatopoeia.
Yes, using words that imitate sounds.
Right. There's this memory recorded by the poet Buson. He is remembering the specific sound of a wooden mallet hitting a wooden stake in the ground. Now, a Western poet might write a whole paragraph about the echoing thud, the damp air carrying the noise, the rhythm of the work.
Really describe the scene.
Exactly. But Buson doesn't do that. He just writes the raw phonetic sound into the text, orochochotari.
Right. Cho-cho.
The intellect wants a description. The intellect wants to know about the sound, but the snedness demands the sound itself. Buson realizes that the exact atmospheric quality of that wooden impact cannot be fully expressed in intellectual words, so he just bypasses the brain entirely and gives the ear the raw sound.
I have to admit, I'm a bit skeptical about how profound this actually is. Like, if I write bang bang or woof woof in a poem, I don't think I'm achieving thusness. I think I'm just writing a children's book.
I completely get that. If you were doing it as a gimmick, yes, it's childish. But Buson is a master of this intense, almost agonizing sensory awareness. He isn't just making sound effects, he is showing how one sense manipulates another.
Okay, show me.
Let's look at a much more complex example of his. It involves a mosquito and a honeysuckle flower. The honeysuckle, or nindo in Japanese, is a delicate whitish-yellow flower. Buisson writes, "With every petal that falls, the voice of the gnats."
Okay, wait. With every petal that falls, the voice of the gnats. Why gnats? And more importantly, how does a falling petal have anything to do with the sound of a bug? Does a falling petal make a sound that harmonizes with a gnat?
No, it's not about harmonizing sounds.
Right.
It's about the acute, almost painful psychological sensitivity of the poet's awareness. Why does the sound of the gnats, the high-pitched whine of mosquitoes, become more profound, more noticeable with each falling petal?
I'm not sure. Why?
Think about the environment. Visually, the flower is fading. A piece of it drops away. It is physically diminishing in front of you. And in your mind, in that tiny, quiet space of visual loss, when the petal detaches and falls, your auditory sense spikes.
Oh, wow.
The mysterious, almost irritating auditory presence of the mosquito is suddenly amplified to fill the void left by the visual loss.
Each time a petal falls, the visual world dies just a little bit, and the sound of the gnats echoes more deeply in the heart.
Yes, the visual and the auditory are resting on a perfectly balanced scale in the poet's consciousness. When one goes down, the other goes up.
So the fading of the visual makes room for the auditory. That actually makes a lot of sense. It reminds me of sensory deprivation.
Oh, totally.
When you are in a completely dark, silent room, if a clock ticks, it sounds like a gunshot. Your brain is starved for input, so it amplifies whatever is there.
Exactly. And there's another poem in this section that takes this cross-modal perception to an absolute extreme. It's about a fish in an old well. Let me read it. In the old well, a fish leaps up at a gnat. The sound of the water is dark.
The sound of the water is dark.
I'm going to be honest, when I first read that, I thought it sounded like a pretentious art school critique. You know, the sound is dark. What does that actually mean? Give me a grounded example of how someone can hear darkness.
It sounds completely abstract until you put yourself in the physical position of the poet. Imagine leaning over the edge of an ancient, deep stone well at twilight. You can't see the bottom. It is a cylinder of pitch blackness.
I'm picturing it.
Suddenly, deep down in that void, a fish jumps and splashes. How does that splash sound? It doesn't sound like a splash in a sunny, shallow puddle.
No, it would echo.
Exactly. The acoustic resonance of that deep, enclosed, stone-walled darkness fundamentally changes the physical shape of the sound wave reaching your ear. The sound is muffled, it's hollow, it echoes with a heavy, low frequency.
So the darkness actually has a physical shape, and that shape changes the sound.
Yes. The darkness is not just an absence of light in this context. It is an acoustic environment. The poet hears the splash, but the quality of that splash instantly communicates the depth and the blackness of the well. The sound itself is infused with darkness.
That's incredible.
He doesn't say, the water splashed loudly in the dark well. He says, the sound of the water is dark. It is a completely unified sensory experience.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The crazy realization these poets had was how to basically hack the human nervous system using language. Because what you are describing perfectly aligns with the exact goals of modern mindfulness practices today.
Oh, absolutely it does.
You download a meditation app right now, and the voice tells you to focus on the ambient sound of the room, or feel the physical weight of your body in the chair. They're trying to get you to stop analyzing and start experiencing. But these haiku masters were doing it centuries ago, and they were turning that neurological hack into high art.
And what we discover as we move deeper into BLYTH's analysis is that this state of intense, hypervigilant sensory awareness, it yields completely different psychological results depending on the environment you are in.
Right, context matters.
Specifically, depending on the season. This is a massive theme in haiku. The state of thusness is not a flat, emotionless plateau. It has a temperature. The philosophy we are examining spends a great deal of time contrasting the specific psychology of summer with the specific psychology of autumn.
Let's talk about the psychology of summer first, because the concept of coolness in these summer poems is not what I expected at all.
It's very counterintuitive.
Yeah. Summer coolness in haiku isn't just a literal drop in the temperature on a thermometer. It's described as a sudden physical relief, an overwhelming sense of vastness. There's this one haiku in the middle of a green rice field, a single pine tree.
It is a striking visual image.
It is, but notice what's missing. There is no mention of wind. There is no mention of shade. The poem doesn't say, sitting under a pine tree enjoying the breeze.
Right.
The coolness is purely visual and conceptual. It's the sheer contrast of the dark, almost black-green pine trees standing out violently against the blinding, bright green expanse of the rice field and the vast blue sky. Just the act of looking at that sharp contrast, that singular focal point in a sea of brightness creates a sensation of coolness and relief in the mind.
You are perceiving vastness, but it is anchored by one specific thing. The mind finds a resting place on the pine tree, and in that resting, it physically cools down. It's an incredibly sophisticated psychological trick.
It really is.
And the poet Isa takes this idea of summer coolness and pushes it completely out of the physical realm and into the spiritual realm. Isa wrote this astonishing verse: I have nothing at all but this tranquility, this coolness.
I have nothing at all. My first thought reading that is, well, the guy is broke. He has no money, no possessions. How is that cool? How is that tranquil? Usually having nothing is a source of massive anxiety.
For the ordinary mind, yes. The ordinary mind says, I have nothing. I must acquire things to be safe. But Isa has achieved the haiku mind. The profound poetry here lies in the direct identity of nothingness with physical and spiritual coolness. Think of the heat of summer as the heat of human desire. The constant sweating, striving, wanting, defending your property, worrying about your status.
It's exhausting.
Isa looks at his life, realizes he has absolutely nothing to defend, nothing to lose, and in that moment of total non-attachment, a massive psychological burden drops off his shoulders. The relief is palpable.
It's the relief of giving up.
Not giving up in despair, though. It's surrendering the ego's need to control. In having nothing and desiring nothing, his mind becomes perfectly tranquil. The coolness he feels is deeply physical, a literal lowering of his blood pressure, a relaxing of his muscles, but it is born entirely from a state of total spiritual non-attachment.
Wow.
Summer coolness in haiku, even when it involves deep poverty, is generally an affirmation of life. It's the sheer joy of stepping out of a sweltering hot bath into the evening air and feeling the wind on your skin.
It's expansive. But then, the earth tilts on its axis, the calendar turns, the humidity breaks, and autumn arrives. And the psychological landscape changes completely.
It is a profound shift.
The material describes autumn coldness, not as a physical weather event. It's not the biting, bitter cold of deep winter blizzards. It's much more insidious. It's described as a melancholy chilling of the spirit. Shiki wrote a verse that perfectly captures this subtle creep of autumn. The light in the next room also goes out. The night is chill.
It's a remarkably subtle yet devastating shift in tone. In autumn, despondency and gloom begin to settle on the human mind with a gently irresistible power.
Yeah, you can't fight it.
It's the season of diminishing returns. Everything feels like it's gradually losing its life force, losing its strength. In Shiki's poem, you are sitting in a room. You know someone is in the next room because their light is shining under the door. It provides a subconscious sense of warmth and companionship. Then, that light clicks off.
And suddenly you are totally alone in the dark.
The physical temperature of the room hasn't dropped a single degree, but the psychological temperature plunges. Even the light of your own lamp suddenly seems feeble against the growing darkness of the season. As the philosophy notes, in autumn, everything becomes tasteless. The vitality of summer is just gone.
Okay, this is where I start to struggle with the application of all this.
How so?
Well, what does this mean for me, the listener, living my life today? How am I supposed to enjoy or learn from this feeling of autumn despondency? If haiku is supposed to be this profound gateway to enlightenment, is it telling me to just sit in the dark, turn off my heater, and be depressed that the year is ending?
I see the conflict.
Right. Because if I feel a chill, my instinct is to put on a sweater or turn on the TV to distract myself.
And that instinct to put on the sweater, to turn on the TV, to grab your phone, is the exact manifestation of the cowardly mind refusing to face thusness.
Ouch. Calling me a coward for wanting a sweater is a bit harsh, don't you think?
Let me explain why it's viewed that way in this context. In Zen, and in the haiku mindset, fully experiencing the reality of a given moment, even a sad, diminishing, lonely, or uncomfortable moment, is where true human vitality actually lies.
So feeling the bad stuff is part of the vitality.
Yes, it's about having the immense psychological courage to face the inevitable ebb of life without looking away, without instantly seeking a distraction or an artificial comfort.
So I have to just sit there and suffer. That sounds miserable.
It's not suffering if you remove the judgment from it. Suffering comes from the resistance to the cold. Suffering comes from the thought, oh, I wish it were still summer.
Right, the desire for things to be different.
Exactly. When the light in the next room goes out, the chill of the night is simply the current reality. To feel that chill deeply, to let it penetrate your skin without fighting it, without complaining about it, is a profound act of living.
You're just accepting it.
You are aligning your own nervous system with the fundamental, unavoidable rhythm of the universe. The universe expands and contracts. Summer is the expansion. Autumn is the contraction. If you only accept the expansion, you are only living half a life.
Wow. You don't fight the chill, you don't hide from the chill, you literally have to become the chill. You accept the tastelessness until you find the hidden taste within it.
That is beautifully put.
But before we let the expansive summer completely fade away into that quiet autumn chill, our sources take us on this massive, highly specific tangent into the ultimate symbol of Japanese summer energy. To truly grasp the absolute frenzy of summer before we lose it, we have to look at a bird. A very specific bird called the hotojisu.
Yes, the hotojisu. It is often loosely translated in English as the little cuckoo, but that translation completely fails to capture its cultural weight.
Right, it doesn't do it justice.
Not at all. The analysis we are reviewing is incredibly specific about the biology, the behavior, and the dark mythology of this bird because you simply cannot understand the poetry without understanding the physical reality of the creature.
Let's lay out the facts of this bird for the listener. It is a migratory bird that arrives right at the onset of summer. Visually, it has a dark gray back, and the female has this striking white breast.
And behaviorally, it is what is known as a brood parasite.
Right. It doesn't build its own nest. It lays its eggs in the nest of another bird, specifically the ugisu, or bush warbler. It forces another species to raise its young. It's a totally parasitic lifestyle.
It is ruthless. But while its parasitic nature is interesting, what truly obsesses the haiku poets and what makes it the defining symbol of summer is its voice.
Oh, the voice is legendary.
The hotojisu sings almost exclusively at night, and often while it is rapidly flying through the dark sky. Its cry is described in the folklore as so intense, so overwhelmingly melancholy and desperate, that legend says the bird literally sings until it tears its own throat and brings up blood.
It sings until it bleeds. And the crazy part is, the inside of the bird's mouth is actually colored blood red, which only fuels the myth. It's like a creature made entirely of pure, agonizing, desperate energy. Basho, the great master, wrote about its relentless nature. Singing, flying, singing. What a busy life.
Singing, flying, singing. Notice the absolute lack of pause in that line.
It's pure motion. And the commentary on this poem points out something fascinating about human psychology. The fundamental difference between the hotojisu and us is that the bird is perfectly, entirely busy just being a bird.
Yeah.
Humans, on the other hand, are almost never fully occupied with just being human.
Exactly. We are constantly fractured. When we are working, we wish we were resting. When we are resting, we feel guilty that we aren't working.
Story of my life.
We are bored, we are dissatisfied, we are paralyzed by indecision. The hotojisu does not have an identity crisis. It doesn't wonder if it should sing differently. It is 100% hotojisu 100% of the time. It's pure action without a shadow of hesitation.
It is the ultimate manifestation of the egoless state, just moving at 1,000,000 miles an hour. And the poets use this bird to create these magnificent, almost cinematic unities of sight and sound. Sasho has another poem that just blew me away. Let me find it. Here, the voice of the hotojisu and the 5-foot irises.
Let's unpack the mechanics of that poem, because on the surface it looks like he's just arbitrarily placing two random things next to each other, a bird's voice and some tall flowers.
Right. If I wrote the sound of a car horn and a large pizza,
Yeah.
it wouldn't be art. So why is this art?
You have to look at the resonance of the specific physical forms. Think about the shape of a 5-foot iris. It has long, sharp, pointed, blade-like green leaves and spears that thrust violently upward from the mud.
Okay, very angular.
Now think about the voice of the hotojisu. It is shrill, piercing, sudden, and sharp. It cuts through the night air.
Ah, I see it now.
The visual shape of the sharp, pointed flower perfectly matches the auditory shape of the shrill, piercing cry of the bird. Form and timbre are expressing the exact same intense summer energy. Sight and sound are perfectly unified. It's an almost aggressive display of life force.
It's synesthesia again, but this time with a really sharp edge. And then there's a poem by Shikigi that plays with space and movement in a way that feels like a tracking shot in a movie.
I know the one.
In the poem, a lantern is moving away from the viewer into the surrounding darkness. Visually, the light is growing fainter and fainter. At the exact same time, the voice of the Hotochisu sounds nearer and nearer as it flies closer.
Light retreating, sound advancing.
Exactly. But the philosophy argues that the haiku mind doesn't process this as a stark contrast. It doesn't say one thing is leaving, one thing is arriving. It processes it as the single breathing ebb and flow of reality. The light fades, the sound approaches, it's just the universe inhaling and exhaling.
It is the one unbroken sea of being. But, and this is a critical pivot in our understanding of haiku, we absolutely cannot make the mistake of thinking that the hotokozu is just a symbol of pleasant, energetic summer vitality. Haiku does not just look at the pretty things. Thusness encompasses all of reality, including the horrific.
Right, which brings me to a poem by Busan that honestly stopped me in my tracks. It is incredibly dark, almost grotesque. Busan writes, "A hototojisu, snatching at the coffin from between the clouds."
It's a heavy one.
I have to be completely honest here. When I read that, it shattered every preconceived stereotype I had about haiku. I thought this was the poetry of mindfulness, of peaceful monks looking at frogs jumping into ponds. This is straight-up gothic horror. A bloody-mouthed bird snatching at a dead body in a coffin from dark, stormy clouds.
Yeah.
What is going on here?
It is terrifying, isn't it? It feels like a literal nightmare. But if we are truly practicing the haiku mind, we cannot turn away from it. We have to dissect this image without flinching. Remember the context. The hotojisu almost exclusively flies and sings on pitch-dark nights. These are the nights when human beings feel most vulnerable, when the bravest person must be on guard against the unknown.
Okay, set the scene for me.
Imagine a funeral procession moving through a dark landscape at night. You have the heavy, low-lying, oppressive summer clouds. In Japanese folklore, it was believed that demons would literally stretch their terrible hands down from those low clouds to snatch the dead from their coffins before they could be properly put to rest.
That's horrifying.
Now, in the midst of this terrifying, paranoid atmosphere, the Hototojisu suddenly flies low overhead, letting out its piercing, desperate, blood-curdling shriek.
Jesus.
In Busan's mind, in that split second of sensory overload, all those elements fuse together. The sudden, violent cry of the bird, the mythological demons, the oppressive dark clouds, and the very real physical presence of the wooden coffin containing a corpse. They all mingle into one inseparable, horrifying experience of thusness.
So the bird isn't literally grabbing the coffin.
Yeah.
The entire night sky. The bird, the folklore, the death, it's all one snatching movement.
Precisely. It reveals the terrifying, totally uncontrollable, yet undeniable majestic side of nature. Death, paranoia, and mythological demons are just as much a part of human reality as the bright green rice fields.
The haiku mind doesn't flinch at the coffin. It doesn't try to write a poem saying the dead person is in a better place. It just stares at the horror of the night and says, this too is reality.
It cannot flinch. The moment it flinches, the moment it looks away because the sight is unpleasant, it ceases to be the haiku mind and reverts to the cowardly, ordinary mind.
Okay, that is intense. So after this frantic, bloody, energetic, and sometimes terrifying summer of the Hotojisu finally exhausts itself, the atmosphere changes.
The heat breaks.
The humidity breaks. The sky clears. And we move away from the bird into the ultimate symbol of the autumn season. And honestly, perhaps the ultimate symbol of the entire haiku philosophy, the autumn moon.
The moon is repeatedly referred to in these texts as the soul of autumn. Think about how we interact with celestial bodies. We take the sun entirely for granted.
We do. We never really look at it.
Right. The sun is just a blunt fact of the day. It's a utility that provides heat and light so we can work. You can't even look directly at the sun.
Right, it blinds you.
But the moon is different. The moon has what BLYTH calls a remote nearness. It is incredibly far away, cold and dead, yet its soft, silent, smiling light feels intimately close. It doesn't illuminate the world so we can work. It illuminates the world in a way that deepens the mystery of our own lives. It invites contemplation.
The way these poets capture the atmosphere of autumn under this moon is so haunting. There's a poem by Raizen that creates such a vivid physical space. The shape of autumn that has passed through the shutters, the candle's twisted flame.
Let's visualize that for a second.
You're inside a room, the shutters are closed against the night, you can't see the trees or the sky, but the autumn wind finds a tiny crack in the wood. It slips inside, and it hits the flame of a candle sitting on the table. The flame bends, it twists, it dances wildly.
Beautiful imagery.
Raizen isn't just saying it's windy. He is saying that in the frantic twisting of that tiny fire, you can literally see the physical, invisible shape of autumn itself entering your home.
He makes the invisible visible. He captures the physical intrusion of the season into the private human space.
And then we have Basho, who brings the moon into the realm of profound spiritual realization. He was staying at a temple in Kashima, engaging in intense Zen training, and he stepped outside and wrote, "Gazing at the moon with my veritable countenance."
Now, veritable countenance is a phrase we must absolutely unpack, because it is the cornerstone of Zen self-awareness. It is often translated as your original face.
My original face. What does that actually mean? I only have one face.
Do you? Think about how you move through modern society. You have your work face, the polite professional mask you wear for your boss. You have your spouse face, the vulnerable but patterned way you act with your partner. You have your internet face, the curated, witty persona you present on social media.
Goody is charged.
Your entire identity is a composite of reactions, societal conditioning, traumas, and egos. You are constantly projecting a face to protect yourself.
Okay, that's painfully accurate. So what is the original face?
The veritable countenance is your true self before you were born. It is the core of your consciousness stripped entirely of all that societal conditioning, all those masks, and all that ego. It is who you are when there is absolutely no one around to perform for.
Just pure existence.
Basho stepped out of the rigorous, deeply solitary training of the temple. He had stripped away his ego. He looked up at the autumn moon, and for a fleeting moment, he saw it with complete, terrifying purity. He wasn't a poet looking at a moon. He wasn't a monk looking at a moon.
He was just a consciousness.
He saw the moon, and the moon saw him. There was no barrier, no mask, no ego between them. That is gazing with your veritable countenance.
That sounds like ultimate peace. But this philosophy doesn't let us stay in a state of peaceful meditation. It forces us back into the brutal reality of the physical world. And this leads us to a poem that I genuinely struggled with. In fact, when I read this in the source material, I had to physically put the text down and walk away for a minute.
I think I know which one you're talking about.
It's another one by Buson. He writes, "The full moon, a manservant leaving a puppy to die."
Yes, that is the poem.
Hold on, let's just sit with that. A man under the beautiful light of a full moon, walking out and abandoning a helpless puppy to die in the cold. How is that poetry?
It's challenging.
How does a scene of such casual, profound cruelty fit into the claim we made at the very beginning of this deep dive, that haiku is about the application of love one another to all things? It feels incredibly cold. It feels sociopathic. Why would a master poet immortalize this?
It is an incredibly difficult poem to digest, and the analysis we are following tackles this exact problem head-on. It offers an incredibly daring, almost dangerous philosophical interpretation. The argument is that in the moment of writing this poem, Buson's haiku mind is raised entirely above human morality.
Above morality. So
Yeah.
he's just okay with a puppy dying.
It's not about being okay or not okay with it. It is about transcending the human need to categorize the universe into good and evil. He is raised above traditional Buddhism, which would preach compassion for the dog. He is raised above pantheism, which might try to argue that God is in the dog and God is in the moon.
So where is he?
He has entered a terrifying realm of thusness, where things simply are.
But a dying puppy. It's a living creature suffering.
It is brutal, but reality, the undeniable thusness of the universe, is brutal. Nature does not operate on human morality. The bright autumn moon shines its glorious, ancient, perfect light. Beneath that exact same beautiful light, a human being commits a mundane act of cruelty and a dog suffers. That is the terrible, cold beauty of reality. Notice what Buson does not do in the poem.
He doesn't say the evil servant.
Exactly. He does not judge the servant. He does not curse the moon for shining its beautiful light on such an ugly scene. He does not jump in to save the dog. He simply unflinchingly records the exact state of the universe in that millisecond.
He witnesses the horror and refuses to look away.
Yeah.
And refuses to judge it. He just accepts that this is what the universe is doing right now.
Yes. But crucially, the philosophical framework of haiku does not leave us permanently stranded in that cold, detached void. If it did, it would just be pure nihilism.
Right.
The analysis balances Buson's supreme cold detachment with the supreme agonizing empathy of the poet Issa. Issa looked at a different scene under the autumn moon, and he wrote, "The bright autumn moon, crying in the saucepan, the pond snails."
Crying in the saucepan. He's talking about snails being boiled alive for a meal. You can hear the moisture hissing and squeaking as they die, and it sounds like crying.
Yes. Issa shows us that under that very same beautiful, transcendent autumn moon, the whole creation groaneth. The snails are literally writhing in boiling water. Now, here is the core of the haiku mind. The transcendent beauty of the moon is 100% real, and the agonizing physical pain of the boiling snails is 100% real. They exist simultaneously in the exact same moment.
And you can't resolve them.
You cannot resolve them. Traditional religion tries to resolve them by saying the suffering will be rewarded later, or that the suffering is an illusion. The haiku mind rejects that completely.
So what do you do?
The haiku mind says you must hold the terrifying, cold beauty of the universe in one hand and the agonizing, pathetic suffering of living creatures in the other hand at the exact same time. You must feel the full weight of both without trying to logically reconcile the contradiction.
Pain and beauty existing simultaneously, forever. The moon doesn't stop shining just because the snails are screaming, and the snails' horrific suffering doesn't make the moon any less beautiful. That is a heavy, heavy realization to carry around in your daily life.
It is an immense psychological burden. But holding that contradiction, without breaking, without retreating into comforting lies, is considered the ultimate maturity of the human spirit. That is what it means to truly look at the moon.
We have covered an absolutely massive amount of philosophical and psychological terrain today. We started with the concept of the haiku mind, the idea that our ordinary thoughts are folly, and we must seek the unadorned finger pointing directly at the moon of reality. We explored how these poets completely collapse their nervous systems, mixing up their senses, hearing the physical darkness of water, and feeling the physical coolness of a visual moon, all to capture the raw dustness of the world.
The just so-ness.
Exactly. We traveled through the physical vastness and spiritual relief of summer emptiness, straight into the psychological chill and the inevitable despondency of autumn. We faced the frantic, desperate, bloody-mouthed energy of the Hotokisu bird, snatching at coffins in the dark, reminding us that horror is part of nature.
It's an intense journey.
And finally, we confronted the cold, undeniable, dual reality of the autumn moon, a universe that shines with perfect beauty over both enlightenment and profound suffering.
And we must return to why this matters deeply for you, the listener, right now in the modern world. We live in an era of unprecedented algorithmic information overload. We are subjected to constant distraction, endless moralizing, and a relentless pressure to judge every single thing we encounter as either good or bad.
Constantly.
We are constantly reacting, constantly performing, constantly wearing our masks. Haiku trains you to do something incredibly radical, to just stop. It trains you to look at the aggressively ordinary things around you, a street lamp buzzing in the rain, a passing car kicking up dirty water, a dying houseplant dropping a brown leaf onto your desk, and see their profound, unquestionable thusness.
You see them for what they are.
It trains you to enter deeply into the life of the objects and moments around you, rather than just using them as a blurred background noise for your own ego's movie.
This entire philosophy is about radically changing how you interface with reality. So I'll leave you with one final thought, one new way to apply this that we haven't even touched on yet. We've talked all about nature today, birds, moons, trees. But what about the totally artificial digital world we actually live in?
That's a great question.
Next time your smartphone screen lights up with a notification, next time you feel that phantom buzz in your pocket, or you find yourself mindlessly scrolling through an endless feed of opinions and outrage, can you apply the haiku mind to that?
It's definitely harder, but yes.
Can you stop the automatic reaction? Can you look at that glowing piece of glass and metal in your hand, not as a source of anxiety, not as a connection to 1,000 arguing voices, but just as an object? Can you observe the specific curve of the font, the exact harshness of the blue light against the dark room?
That's the challenge.
Can you witness the digital noise of the 21st century with the exact same unjudging, detached, terrifyingly present veritable countenance that Basho used to look at the moon? Can you find the thusness in the machine? Think about that the next time it pings.